Welcome to the Women's Health Podcast. I'm Antony Lowe, the physio detective.
And I'm Marika Hart from Herasphere. Together, we interview leading authorities and we answer questions and share our thoughts to provide the general public with the best quality information that we can find on all aspects related to women's health. Please remember that the materials and content on this podcast are intended as general information and they are for entertainment purposes only.
They're not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Now sit back, grab your favourite beverage, or do your thing, and enjoy the show. Hi everybody, welcome to the podcast today. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our guest, Amy Eicher. Amy Eicher is an author, she's a speaker, she's a pain coach, she's also a PTA, she's an educator, and she's got an amazing story. She's a friend of mine as well. We started off by fighting with each other, and now we still fight with each other, but much more like brother and sister instead of protective mama bear versus guy who likes to poke holes in stories. So welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, that's okay. Thank your mother. She had you. So we've also got Marika with us. Hey, Marika, how are you going?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Antony. How are you?
Good, thank you. Really interested today. So today we're going to hear about Amy's story. We're going to hear about her book. We're going to hear about what she does with her clients. And I'm really looking forward to hearing it. But because I know it so well, I'm going to let Marika ask more of the questions today, which is always fun because Marika asks such good questions. So really looking forward to it. Amy, tell us what kind of, where would you like to start with your story? Because, you know, I know it started more than 26 years ago.
26 and a half. Plus some. No, well, I mean, if we start at the beginning, I was born in a small, no, that's really boring. We won't do that.
26 years old, right? You're 26 years old with a kid that's 16, 17.
It's crazy, isn't it? Okay, I might be a little bit older than 26. Maybe I'm 44. But we can start with swimming in college when the injury occurred and kind of build around that, if you like.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I was a summer baby, so a young 18 when I started college at Illinois State University, where I had been recruited to swim for the swim team. I had coaches in high school that said I had a pretty good shot at being one of the faster women in the pool at my age, and they were looking for me to break some records and do some pretty big things and possibly even qualify for the Olympics back in the day. I still think that they were being really, really nice, but we'll just accept that they believed that I was, you know, I had the potential to be one of the fastest women in the world. And I packed my bags and I went to college on my scholarship and started swim practice and found that it was very different from my high school swim practice. We swam probably double the yardage. And I felt very small in my little pond and started chasing the faster girls. And within a few months, I was starting to kind of get some back ickiness, low back kind of hurt. We had a big meet weekend. We would get on the little travel bus and we hit 3 states in 3 days in 3 different meets, which I get.
Wow.
Other sports do that. Swimming doesn't really do that. Like, that's not really a thing that happens very often. And it was intense, and I swam in all of them, which was, you know, very exciting for little freshmen. But I do remember getting on the bus and really just kind of touching my low back and feeling like things weren't right and wishing that like trainers gave us rub downs or something cool, like that there was more than ice available, I think. And shortly after that, I was at a routine practice in the pool and I did a flip turn like I'd done 100 bajillion times. I heard like a pop somewhere in my back butt area, and then just searing pain throughout my butt and right leg. And it was kind of like in a cute little C shape at the end of the pool. So not drowning, I wasn't drowning, but like I couldn't straighten up, like to get my head back above water. So teammates are starting to come into the wall, so there's like this back jam because my body is in the way of where they're supposed to be turning. And the next thing I know, somebody has kind of scooped me up by the hips, flopped me onto the deck, and starts stretching my hamstrings, where I feel like I probably screamed because I remember it feeling very intense and burning and painful. And the memory kind of fades out from there.
So you basically passed out with agonizing pain?
I think so. I think that's probably a fair, like, I don't remember if I passed out, but I do know that that's kind of where the memory just stops. And what would precede that is 3 to 4 months of seeing the top specialists in my area that took care of all of us athletes, because, you know, when they pay you to swim, they want to make sure that you can keep doing your job, because they don't like to be paying people that aren't doing their job. So I got to know our trainer, John Munn, really well, and spent a lot of time with his elbow in my butt, and went through every tube and injection known to man to pinpoint the source of my pain while I was laying on the floor of my classes because I could not sit. And what would typically take me like 5 minutes to walk across campus was taking closer to 45 minutes. So walking and sitting were very, very challenging at that time. And after x-rays and CT scans and MRIs and bone scans with and without contrast and various needles injected into me, the consensus for why I was having this intense butt pain was, are you ready? I must not want to swim. So I'm making it up.
So obvious.
Whoa.
Right? I mean, why wouldn't I want to sit in a chair?
Yeah, because crawling across the campus is what every girl dreams of.
Right? I mean, doesn't every 18-year-old want like a super cool walker or cane, or I don't know. I should have those like little like scooter things. Could have souped that up with stickers.
So who said that to you? This is one of the doctors, sports doctors, was it?
This was said multiple times during that.
By different people.
Yes. So the coach said it. The orthopedic sports doc said it. The trainer did not. John believed me. John was the only one at that time that believed me. And he was like, I don't know what's causing all this pain, but it's super clear that you don't want it. And I don't understand why we can't figure out where it's coming from.
So the scans were looking pretty clear.
There was nothing. I mean, there was
obviously the pain is all in your head. Right. Okay.
Right. So the pain is all in my head. I'm making it up. And the interesting thing was I was hiding a secret at that time that I didn't want anybody to know about. So I'm basically being told, well, you just don't want to swim. You just want to go home. Like, you just can't handle the college thing. And the secret is that I'm being sexually abused by my youth group leader who is at home. And so I do not want to go home. I want to stay here on scholarship where I am safe and have swim meets so that I have excuses to not
go home.
Going home is the last place that I want to be. But I can't tell anybody because I think that I'm in the middle of an affair, and that if anybody finds out, I'm going to be arrested, because I'm also not very smart at 18. But
arrested?
It started when she was younger, right?
Yeah, it started when I was younger.
Oh, sorry. The youth group leader who was abusing you, you thought you might get in trouble.
Yeah, he told me that I would be arrested for adultery if anybody found out.
Well, he sounds like a total douche that I want to slap in the face, but we could move on from that.
I was going to say, there's a line forming.
He was convicted and arrested and convicted.
Arrested and convicted, and did do jail time. So there was some closure to that.
Wow.
Yeah, but so the pain may have been in my head, or maybe more specifically my unconscious brain and nervous system and tissue and chemicals and a couple other things. But one of the things that has fascinated me as my journey continued is the idea that you can have a nervous system that's ready for something like this to happen. And basically this was the match on the gasoline.
You were primed. You were ready to blow.
Yeah, I was just ready to go. I mean, and swimming was my everything, right? It's my identity. It is my social group. It is my favorite activity in the world. It is also my livelihood. It's what's paying for school. So by taking that one thing out, like, there wasn't really a whole lot left except for this girl that's being sexually abused. Like, that's the other label of my identity. So there's not really a whole lot else there, because I'm at the pool all the time. I mean, I swim from morning till bedtime. So
at that point, Amy, when they said to you, okay, you've had these scans, there's nothing there, you just want to go home, did they say to you, get in the pool or you're out? Like, was there a bit of any kind of ultimatum with your scholarship there?
No, nobody put me back in the pool. They thought it would be the worst thing for me. And because they couldn't find the offending tissue, they were afraid something was going to break. So I was treated like I was incredibly fragile. And I was told, we can't put you back in like, you can't get back in.
You can't get back in. Cool.
No, I never set foot back in that pool as a college athlete. So I never got back in the water. Nobody ever tested it, which to this day, like, that I would change. We talked a little bit about, before we got on, about what are things that you would do differently. Somebody put my ass back in that pool. Like, just see what happens. I'm pretty sure my pelvis wasn't going to explode. But I was led to believe that.
But you're 18 years old. You're 18 years old, and you trust all the healthcare professionals and your coaches and your university. You what do you know at 18? You know nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I know my butt hurts. I know my butt hurts a lot. And my athletic director from my high school, I had nannied for his daughter for 2 summers, so we were pretty close. And he got involved, like, he had heard that I had gotten hurt, got involved somehow, and gave us the name of a physical therapist up in my hometown. So I'm 2.5 hours from home when I'm down at school. So God bless Anne. Anne, wherever you are, if you happen to listen to this podcast, thank you for listening to me. There's mistakes later, but she and John were the first ones to believe and to listen. And Anne opened that clinic every weekend, took me Friday, Saturday, Sunday, would send me back to school, and then would get me after hours the next Friday. And we did this for months. But when I came into her office, she said, tell me what's been going on. Tell me what happened. She never interrupted. She listened to my entire story. If we could clone that, man.
It's so important, isn't it? And I know, Antony, you are very big on the listening, and we as physiotherapists, apparently on average, we like to interrupt every 8 seconds. I'm just giving Amy a chance to recoup here too, but I had a lady yesterday, and it took me 50 minutes of an hour appointment to get her story, but there was no way I was going to try and make that any faster, because she so needed to tell me this 7-year history and the post-traumatic stress of breastfeeding and childbirth and all of that, because none of the other stuff is relevant until we know that, you know?
Right? So sweet Anne listened to me, and then she did a very thorough examination. She made me feel very safe. She made me feel like she knew what she was doing. And then she pronounced that I had SI joint dysfunction, and my pelvis was all shifted and out of place, and the pop that I heard was probably my SI ligaments, plural, tearing. And so that they were probably completely torn, and so my pelvis was flopping about, and this is where the explanation gets a little scary, but we'll deal with that in a moment. But yes, so I now have this visual of like an ankle ligament, which, you know, is a fairly thin piece. There's a lot of them, but, you know, it's like a singular thread in my head. And this singular thread in my head that's holding my pelvis together has broken and is disconnected. And so I'm not entirely certain what my pelvis is holding onto my body with, but whatever was used to be there is definitely not, because that sound was really disturbing. And she also explained that my core was weak. As a Division I swimmer that was capable of squatting and bench pressing and holding 3-minute planks, and, you know, potentially one of the fastest people in the water, but my core was weak, and I just needed to figure out how to activate my transverse abdominis and multifidus, and that would hold my pelvis together so that it wouldn't hurt. Do you know how hard it is to say that still?
I think I can see Antony's nostrils flaring, but he's like, he's got a total poker face, but there's just these nostrils like.
I was looking at you because I'm thinking, what's Marika thinking? And I'm watching your face do little micro.
I'm trying to keep it.
You guys are both holding it together really well.
Sorry, this is like the cringiest. Yeah, okay. So things popping and snapping. I'm hearing these pelvis flopping around, ligaments rupturing.
And don't forget,
to be fair to Anne, that is the way that we were taught to explain these things.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not like she was deliberately trying to do so. She was trying to help you a lot.
No.
She's trying to help you for sure.
And
just want to make sure.
At the time, it was very comforting to have an explanation.
Yeah.
20 years later, when things still hurt, it wasn't nearly as comforting. But at the time, it was comforting to have somebody that was so sure of what they knew. And I mean, my goodness, she found the sacral torsion and the L5 torsion that followed the sacral torsion. And I mean, she was good. She could feel all that through all that tissue. So, so this was the narrative that became set in my head. My pelvis is unstable. My right side is a hot, floppy mess. Like, my left side's okay. But when I hurt, I'm out of alignment, and my SI joint is partially dislocated. When I don't hurt, my SI joint is properly located, and life is fine. And she taught me things to do at home, muscle energy techniques, and I'm going to push here and pull there and scoot this in, and yeah, you know, do my bridges first to make sure everything's all lined up the way that it should be. And I had a little ritual and routine, and for years that made me feel better.
So you were able to get some control over your pain by that stage, Amy?
Yes. I think it was about 9 months that I was in therapy, and she used a variety of different, dare I say, tools. Her particular favorite was strain counter strain. And so she'd hold me in very bizarre positions, and it would relax things, and I really enjoyed it. And she did get on with exercises fairly quickly. I remember lots of stability ball exercises, which I thought were fun because they were challenging. And, you know, I'm an athlete, dang it. So I wanted things that were challenging. But to this day, I still don't know why nobody put me back in the water. Like, put the fish back in the water. But they did not. And when I was discharged, that was also a very lasting impression, where she told me that my pelvis was not strong enough to have children, so that carrying a baby would probably be problematic and I should consider adopting. That I would.
I'm sorry, you were 18 at the time?
Yes, that's correct. That is true. I also have 2 beautiful children now. But I was told I could never swim competitively again because I wouldn't be able to handle the impact from the walls. And that I should keep my eye out for improvements in SI joint surgery, because I was probably going to need it someday because I was so unstable. But until then, I would have the belt, the SI belt. And I remember...
So you're wearing the belt 24/7?
Only when it hurt. I'd put myself back in and then put the belt on, and I forget what the magic explanation for that was, but it lowered the pain.
Yep.
I did go on birth control for a year to stop my period because it seemed to get worse at different stages of my period. So that seemed kind of magical, that year on birth control. And as long as I did all of the right things and didn't do, and I put in air quotes, too much, my pain was managed and I was able to continue on with school. And I started volunteering for the same youth ministry that, the gentleman had abused me in a different location, and got so much joy and meaning from that, and giving to these high school kids, and in general, not really having to think much about my pain. So since I couldn't swim, becoming a Young Life leader gave me my purpose and meaning, and was really good. But we would go to camp and do ski trips and things, and I would find those very, very difficult. Oddly enough, there were also places where I tended to cross paths with my abuser. So maybe it wasn't the activity as much as it was the environment that increased my pain. A little combination of both. Just little reflections as I turn around and see a lifetime of pain, and kind of go, oh, but maybe it wasn't just the skiing. Maybe it was also the fact that you're skiing and you're going to have to go back to the lodge, and Jeff is speaking tonight in front of 200 kids, and you don't like that.
Yeah,
So
I can imagine that's not a heck of a lot of fun.
No.
And did you move on to have any more sort of therapy treatments and medical interventions from there, Amy?
I would over the years. So various things, like after I graduated high school, or after I graduated college, I got married, and we continued to work with high school kids, and moving into that first house, I can remember flaring up after that. And so I would go find the PT. They would again tell me that my right side was super loose. I'd tell the story. They'd be like, oh, the pop ligament, you broke it, tore it, clear off, I'm sure. The story was reinforced. By the time I got to surgery, I had probably seen 24 different physical therapists over 3 different states, just trying to cope with flare-ups, what I would now call a flare-up. And there were a couple along the way that were like, well, I don't really think it's your SI joint. And I was not willing to hear that at all. Like, no. See, they figured this out because I've been through the tubes and I've been through the poking, and no.
And if you can't feel it, that's because maybe you're not good enough.
Because you're not good enough. Like, clearly you're not an expert and you don't know what you're talking about if you are so dumb you can't figure out that it's my SI joint. So I had a little patient bias that might have slowed my own healing, because I only wanted the expert in the SI joint, not the new grad, not the one that, didn't think the SI joint could move or be problematic, or that maybe there were other explanations for pain. Like, that was just uneducated to me. You just didn't know what you were talking about, so I wasn't going to waste my time with you. And that really did a disservice to me as a patient. And I wish I could go back and talk to myself and say, you really should listen to another explanation. Quit holding quite so tightly to this one. It's not going to be
hard though, because it's such a normal thing to do, to when you've had an explanation that you like, that makes sense to you, it gives you a filter from which to judge other people, because you feel like you're on the right path,
Oh, absolutely.
And to be fair, Amy, you got better. Like, your pain improved.
It did.
So then that fit into, that all made sense then.
Yes.
I had this put back into place. My pain got better. Therefore, that was what was causing my pain.
And so we're just going to keep doing that. Except when the kids were young, So I'd gone through 2 pregnancies. Those were fairly uneventful. I mean, I would say, yes, there was an increase in pain, but nothing that I felt was like unusual for gaining 25 to 35 pounds and growing a human inside of you. Like I rated my labor pains at transition at a 4 out of 10. The nurse asked if I'd already had medicine, and I said, no, I haven't had any medicine. Why? And she said, no, nobody rates it this low. And I was like, oh, it's really not that bad.
You're like, I can do pain. I've got pain. I know pain.
Like,
When's the pain going to start? Because I've been through a lot of pain already.
Right. And like, that's like reflecting back on that, even the nervousness with, having my son, like, I really do. I reflect on that back now and I'm like, man, you want to talk about purpose and meaning and like ascribing that to our pain. Like I had definitely been in pass out levels of pain. So like an actual 10 where I am unconscious because the pain is so bad. My body's like, and good night. Childbirth with no drugs. These contractions come and go. They stop. I get to breathe. There's going to be a baby at the end. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. So like even Connor's head coming through, I think that I was still at I was like, okay, that might be like a 6. Like, that's going to be done soon, right? But I knew it was going to end. Like Connor was not going to be stuck in my birth canal forever. Like eventually they were either going to do a C-section or he was going to come out and there would be an end to this labor pain. Where the SI pain, that didn't end. I mean, that was constant and scary because after the kids, all of the tips and tricks weren't working quite as well. Like that muscle energy technique stuff wasn't working quite as well. And I'd gone off birth control because I wanted babies. And after my daughter was born, my husband and I were really struggling relationally. And I had gone off staff to take care of my kids. So purpose and meaning I was struggling to find. And the pain just kind of descended like a cloud. And I can remember my husband was asked to leave staff, Young Life staff. So that was our income and we had to start a new business. And I remember saying, I don't think that this is a good idea. I think you need to work for someone else. And he was adamant that we were going to try, and that business failed, which put us in a position where we had to sell our home and move away from my support system. And when we got back to Illinois, I didn't know anybody. My pain this was like 2005, and my pain was at an all-time high, and I could not get it back under control. And I remember I started mixing muscle relaxants and alcohol because it was the only thing that would bring me any kind of relief. And it would knock me out. Like sleep was the only time that the pain wasn't present. And I remember thinking, I don't really want to plan to commit suicide, but I really, really, really can't live like this anymore. Like the flares became constant instead of occasional. The loneliness was overwhelming. I don't think I've ever felt any more alone in my entire life. And it was me and my pain was the only thing I had at that point. There was no relationship, there was no sitting, there was no going out with friends. I didn't even want to talk to my best friend on the phone anymore. Like, I did the best I could to be semi-present for the kids. I was on tramadol as needed, and I was taking it as prescribed and not even every day, but it dulled me. Like, I couldn't think anymore. I couldn't smile anymore. Like, I look back at pictures and I feel like my eyes just look dead. I don't remember a lot of my kids' like grade school years because everything was just consumed by this pain. So I heard Anne in the back of my head saying, it'll get to a point where you'll probably need surgery. So I started looking into surgeries in about 2005 to see if, there was anything other than this traditional open surgery where they seemed like they just kind of got you like a fish and stuck stuff back together with screws. And that seemed terrifying. And I didn't need my bones screwed together. I needed somebody to fix the ligament, right? Because that darn singular SI joint ligament is what's causing all this ruckus. And if we could just get somebody to sew that back together, I'd be better. Well, nobody was doing that. Nobody could really explain to me that what a multi-axle joint meant, that it moved in a bunch of different directions. And actually, if you, dear listener, if you're oh so curious, you should probably Google SI joint ligament cadaver. And basically it's like a big meat pie. Like there's so many ligaments and they overlap so much that I'm not really sure what they thought was torn. And if it was completely ripped apart, why we couldn't see that on an MRI.
I was actually looking around me, Amy, to see if I have my pelvis, because usually there's a pelvis sitting on my desk, but not right now.
No pelvis
with all the ligaments. I have my pelvis here, but my model pelvis.
Yes.
Well, there is a ligament.
And I hope you have your pelvis with you today.
I'm sitting on mine.
But yeah, so oddly, no surgeries like to tighten the SI ligaments like there are for your, ankle sprains. I was hoping, but no such luck. But so I'm in this incredibly dark place. Incredibly dark. And it was like that for years. I finally went to see it because I'd given up on medicine being able to help me. I'd been through the 23 physical therapists at that point, and I was disillusioned. Orthopedic surgeons hadn't really helped. GPs had prescribed drugs and physical therapy, but no answers that were lasting. And I started to have neck and shoulder pain. They found a couple herniated discs. They wanted to do surgery and replace my discs. And I was like, I think that physical therapy thing might be a good thing to try before we go cutting my neck open and passing, I don't know, carotid arteries and jugular veins and things that I like for living. One bad day for the surgeon is a really, really, really bad day for me. And I'm thinking maybe we'll give that physical therapy thing one more try, right? And that...
I'm sorry, you had some neck pain.
Uh-huh.
So the answer is replacing your discs.
Yeah, I had some tingling and numbness and couldn't really lift anything with my left hand. But, the disc herniations, they were so terrible. I was going to be crippled. So we're going to cut them out and replace them. Keep breathing. You'll be okay, I promise. So because I had success with physical therapy in the past, I decided that sounded way better than a 2-level disc replacement in my neck. And I said, I tell you what, if that doesn't work, then then let's cut. I'm cool, right? So that's when I met Tim Hyland. And I am the model patient. If you tell me 2 sets of 10, I will do 2 sets of 10. If you tell me 3 sets of 5, I will do 3 sets of 5. If you tell me to stand on my head in the corner for 2 minutes a day and it will make my pain go away, I will do it. So I met Tim, and he was very positive that we were not going to need neck surgery, that this was just a little bump in the road and we were gonna clear this up and I'd be on my way. And there was a lot of talk about posture and muscle imbalances, and I did a lot of chicken neck stuff and pushing my head into the wall and definitely pulling my shoulders back. But in 6 weeks, I could pick a gallon of milk up out of my refrigerator, and the pain that was radiating down my shoulder was gone. So that was really good. So Tim must be magic, right? Because this has been going on for a long time. And I'm like totally healed now. So I'm back in the good graces of physical therapy. Towards one of our last appointments, Tim looks at me. I bet he wishes he'd never said this now. Tim looks at me and he says, has anybody ever mentioned like your SI joint? And I was like, you know what an SI joint is? Like, wow, you really are magic. And I was like, I am aware of the joint. Like, I'm not willing to give anything away, right? Because I'm ready to graduate instead of being kicked out of therapy, and I just want to graduate from something. Like, I want to be sick. I want to be the successful patient instead of the like, so your insurance isn't going to pay for anymore, or you failed to progress. So good luck. I was like, no, I want that T-shirt. Damn it. So Tim says, yeah, I think maybe you have like SI joint dysfunction, and if you're willing, I'd like to help you with that. Really? I would like help with that. So Tim, God love him, he must have taken like 5 classes in 9 months on the SI joint and read everything available, you know, within his silo on the internet to try to come up with ways to help this poor unstable pelvis of mine. And where we landed was that it was unfixable. That snap I heard must have been the SI ligament tearing, and that I was going to need something more permanent, because at least at this point, he completely believes my core is as strong as it is ever going to get. And I'm back to holding 3-minute planks, and my ass is still literally on fire. Like, so
literally on fire.
Literally.
I was going to jump in and go, maybe figuratively.
No, there were flames coming out of the back side.
Oh, you do that kind of party trick too, do you?
I do. Every single glute exercise known to man, I did it, and I did it well. And apparently, you know, those lazy, dumb glutes that just, I can't even. Yeah. So
they had gluteal amnesia.
Yeah, they just forgot.
They just forgot to do their job, you know.
They forgot. I mean, I was walking, but they forgot how to work. So Tim was kind of the like last straw where I was like, well, if this guy can't fix me, I'm unfixable, right? And I'm gonna sew back in a little bit of some of my internal monologue from being sexually abused, was that I'm permanently broken. No man is ever gonna want me. I'm damaged goods. Like, I have had sex with somebody that is not my husband in a Christian world. That's not okay. I'm broken. I'm broken beyond repair. So my body is broken. My spirit is broken. My emotions are broken. My husband is emotionally absent at that point in our marriage. Like, he had checked out. He had just checked out. And I interact with people on the internet, in an SI joint forum, and my physical therapist. And that is my world. I change clothes on Tuesdays and Thursdays when I shower, about a half hour before I go to therapy. Because I don't want this man to know that I'm not showering or changing my clothes. I don't want anybody to know that. So if you had met me in your office, I would have been smiling and gregarious and told you all about my friends. I just would have left off the fact that they were on the other side of a computer screen. But it sounded like I had social support. It sounded like I had people in my world. I would speak to you kindly about my husband, because good Christian women don't speak poorly about their marriages. We don't do that. It's unkind. It's not the way to help heal a marriage. So I had all of these oh, we'll go soft and say hard things going on. But from the outside, I was a smiling, intelligent, friendly woman. I couldn't possibly be in that much pain, right? Not the kind of pain that would cause me to literally take 2 hours to shower to try to shave my legs. That I would wear the same clothes 3 days in a row because it hurt too much to take my pants off. Like, that was too much. That I had 4 usable hours in my day. I don't see the record button.
Oh,
there
I
it is.
screwed up.
I didn't want anybody to realize the depth of the pain and all of the things that I couldn't do and wasn't doing, or that I only had 4 usable hours in my day. So I would get the kids up, get them off to school, go back and lay down. I would crawl down the stairs, make myself a meal, stay in the living room, chat on the computer. The kids would get home. I would pretend to be okay, get them off to their various activities. And by this point, I was having friends, like the one friend I had in town would pick them up because I couldn't tolerate any more sitting by 5, 6, 7 in the evening when I needed to get in the car to go pick the kids up. And even just getting into the car, the process of getting out of the house, getting into the car, getting out of the car, getting the kids into the activity, to get back into the car, to get out of the car, to get back into the house. Like, even just thinking about that mentally, like it was too much strain on my body. Like my pain would increase just thinking about that. And I didn't tell anybody because I felt like I was just going to be told it was all in my head still. Like, how could that be? How could thinking about the fact that nobody was really there to help me, like, how could that make my pain worse? How could thinking about getting in and out of the car and like how taxing that was going to be, how could that possibly make my pain worse? Well, there's explanations now. But at the time I didn't have them, and nobody had shared anything about mirror neurons or predictive processing or like all of the super cool things that we know now, that pain isn't just about tissue, that it's about so much more. And I do wish somebody had been able to tell me that throughout those years. But by the time Tim did, well, failure to progress came up again as a therapy term. And in 2010, Tim said, Amy, I think you need to look into something more permanent. And when I say think, I mean you do. But I can't tell you what. So that sent me on like another 9-month internet search for answers to what to do for an unstable SI joint, because it must be more unstable now than it was when everything started, because the pain doesn't stop now, right? And I can't get this joint to stay located, can't get it to stay in, and that's why it hurts. So my journey led me to a physical therapist and surgeon in Georgia. And once again, the gift of listening was given, and belief, and being told, I believe you. I know exactly what's wrong with you, and I know exactly how to fix this. You've been through all of the therapy that you need, and the belt and the injections and the scans. And what we need to do is we need to put screws in your SI joint to stop the movement. And she pretty much came up with the same configuration that very first physical therapist did that helped me, and was so full of confidence and told me that 95% of people that had the surgery got their lives back, and this would be the fix that I needed. And by the time I went to see her, the only thing I wanted was a fix. Like, I was exhausted. I was exhausted from trying and enduring and coping and pushing and pretending. And I had gotten to the point I couldn't pretend anymore, right? So I remember sitting in her office and thinking, Amy, you know this is way too good to be true. These stats aren't realistic. Her explanation is way too smooth. Like, you don't believe her. It's this conversation in the back of my head, right? And the rational part of me is like, you don't believe this woman. Why are you listening? Like, and who is this surgeon that lets a physical therapist tell him what type of surgery to do? Like, how does this relationship make any sense? And of course, she doesn't tell him. She merely recommends, right?
But you've just spent 5 years living in hell, basically.
Yes. So I have been in.
This is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
This offer, yeah.
Yeah. So I have been prescribed tramadol for the last 5 years. I have been taking the Flexeril with the alcohol. I would say probably weekly at this point, not daily, but like definitely once a week to get a break from the pain. I have no idea how my kids are doing in school. I'm not even sure I know what grade they're in. Like, I'm not living, I'm existing. And it's been 5 long years of that. And in that office, I do remember just surrendering like intelligence and just being like, Amy, just shut up. It doesn't matter that this doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter that this doesn't match anything that you know about anything. And nobody has a 95% success rate at anything except failing. Like, this is insane. And I was done. I remember saying, just fix me. If you know how to fix me, just fix me. Because I had failed. All of the therapists had failed. The injections had failed. Like, there was no answer. So I had 3 screws inserted into my left side and 2 into my right, and came out of surgery and was told that the pain would be minimal, right? So I'm thinking childbirth, right? This is going to be like a 4. I'm living at a 9. This is going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. Well, I had morphine on board, and I was like, this is a little bit more than a little bit of pain. Like, this is a lot of pain. This is an unacceptable level of pain. And they got my pain managed in the hospital. And I was told that it was, I had grown sensitive to the narcotics because I was taking them regularly. To which I said, no, I take maybe 4 tramadol a month. Not for a day, for a month, because I don't use them as prescribed like I should. I take them when it's really bad. So I put my it's got to get better hat on and decided that part of my problem was I just wasn't thinking positively enough. So through this recovery, I was going to be the most positive patient that I could possibly be, and no negative thoughts about my recovery were going to enter my head. I was going to be Susie Sunshine.
You're rainbows and unicorns.
Oh, coming out my rear. Yeah.
Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt the episode. Just wanted to quickly throw you to the myotherapy reading room, where for less than $50 a year you get awesome information. Less than $100 a year you get all of that information, as well as some extra notes and different types of better quality information. So head on over to patreon.com/myotherapy reading room. It's worth considering to help improve your practice. Now back to the show. Thank you.
Yes, puppies and unicorns and rainbows, and nothing was going to deter me from getting better, right? So, I managed the flight home, and in the back of my head, the whole, like for this 10-month recovery from surgery, in the back of my head, I don't do Susie Sunshine well, never have. And I mean, dang, I am trying so hard. And in the back of my head, there is this other narrative that never comes out anywhere where I'm like, this fucking sucks and I'm not getting better and I should be better than I am by now. And like Susie Sunshine is like, no, don't think like that. Don't. I don't know.
Amy, I'm picturing you with like, you know, like a little angel on one shoulder and a little devil on the other, you know, like the little Disney cartoon.
Yes. That is pretty much exactly what was actually happening. Like, and so the narrative that is coming out of my mouth on my blog and in the SI Joint forum is like, I'm getting better every day.
How long are we through post-op?
We'll call this 10 months post-op. So you're right around the corner. You are right around, like Antony's lurking in the internet, waiting to knock the happy Disney character off my shoulder.
He wants to kick that puppy.
Kick that puppy in the head.
Oh, puppy.
That little Mickey Mouse just sitting there. No. So the thing that has happened in the online world with me is like, I am better. I'm moving better. I'm not in as much pain. My brain fog is disappearing. So like improvement is absolutely happening. But at 10 months post-op, I really thought I was going to be like normal. And I am so very not normal. Like foam rolling and icing and TENS unit. And I was still on anti-inflammatories like 8 months post-op. I mean, come on now. Like, that is not a normal healing process. And Tim is ever vigilant, working beside me and just keeps telling me that it's muscle imbalances. And as soon as those balance themselves out, I'll be better. And I do remember asking him in the clinic one day, like, okay, so if it takes 6 to 8 weeks to build muscle, we've been at this for like 10 months. When exactly am I going to be balanced and strong enough that I stop hurting? I don't think he answered that.
That's a fair question.
Right? Like, at what point do I become balanced? Because Lord knows my pelvis is no longer unstable. I've got 5 screws in it. It's not going anywhere. So I don't care who you are. I'm not believing that anymore. But I still hurt. So the new explanation is the muscle imbalances. That's gone on for months. And I'm kind of at the end of myself thinking, I guess this is just my new normal. Like, it still burns, it still hurts. I still have like, if I move wrong, then ouch. Or, well, I need to really think about engaging my gluteals when I walk around the block. And so like I'm tapping my right butt cheek when I'm walking to try to wake it up, you know, because that's normal. We do that, right? Doesn't everybody walk down the mall like that?
I don't know. I think it'd be like, I don't know. I'm just imagining the looks you get walking down the street slapping your butt.
Right. It's, you know, it leads to other conversations that are maybe uncomfortable.
So we're just to clarify, we're at 2010, right?
We're at 2011.
11. So we're about 5.5. Within a year post-op.
Yep. So injury happened in 1992. It is now 2011.
Yeah. Okay.
I am better, but I am still in pain.
When was the operation?
January 2011, and we are summer, fall.
So the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Just for the international listeners that live in the Southern Hemisphere.
Right. Because your summer is my winter. Yeah. So internally, I'm becoming really dissatisfied with the narrative that I have. And I went back to the PT in Georgia to take her class on the SI joint because I was going to go back to school to become a PTA to rid the world of SI joint dysfunction. And she wanted me to get up and tell everybody like how amazing I was doing after the surgery and that I was pain-free. And I remember saying, I can't do that. That wouldn't be true. And the woman that listened and understood and was going to fix me looked at me and said, "You will tell those people that you are pain-free, young lady, because I fixed you, and this is in your head because you just don't want to get better." Betrayal is a word that comes to mind. How in the world could that be? How could she say that to me? She's seen me fight. She's seen me ask questions. I've brought research papers to her saying, what is this? I bought physical therapy books and read the works of, Janda, however, upper cross, lower cross. I was reading the papers and got the book, and I read the malalignment syndrome, and at this point, I know who Fortin is because he's got all of these papers about the SI joint and Fleming and papers on the anatomy. And I'm just a patient trying to find answers, learning how to read research so that I can fix myself. And I'm pissed. Oh, I'm pissed at this point. And other stories are coming back from Georgia that are similar to this, but so much worse and just so much worse. You can read my blog if you want to.
I'm feeling like her 95% success rate might not be entirely accurate, Amy.
Interestingly enough, I asked for the paper that produced the results, which was never material.
No.
Yeah, nor the methods for the research study. But
yeah,
what are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
It got lost maybe in the shuffle somewhere. Yeah.
So now we're at a point in 2011 where the surgery wasn't the 100% success rate that she promised, and now it's back to being entirely your fault because you probably did something wrong and you don't want to get better, or maybe you didn't do your exercise.
You don't want it bad enough, Amy.
I don't.
You have to do it better, Susie Sunshine.
I mean, I just wasn't thinking positively enough.
Try harder.
Yeah. I don't feel like you've dedicated enough time to your SIJ.
Right? I mean, I'm
not enough reading. Not enough reading.
I'm actually just thinking, Amy, if someone were to test us on the SIJ, I think you know about 100 times more about it than I do.
I will take that and say probably at this point.
Yeah.
And that became apparent as I started advocating for other patients and asking surgeons questions. And the surgeons were like, I don't even know what to do with that. Because I said, well, we keep slapping the posterior side together. How do we know it's not anterior ligaments? Does positioning matter? What, we keep putting people face down. Well, what if we needed to go the other way? And like these surgeons just looked at me like, huh, yeah, those are interesting questions. Nobody's studied that. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe we should. So I've read a lot. I almost wish that like I had that much like Pokemon knowledge or something useful up in there.
Pokemon? It's something useful. I know all about the SI, but I wish I did more Pokemon.
I wish I knew more about Pokemon or like baseball or something. I mean, like at least I could talk to other people about that. Yes. So I wish I had some non-anatomical knowledge about something way more fun. But yes, so I did it harder and better and longer. And I was swimming. Tim, bless his heart, did put me back in the water. So like I was happy. Oh, swimming makes me so happy. And I remember it was still way too long post-op, but Tim did put me back in the water. Thank you, Tim. And that started good things. Like that started moving in a good trajectory. I went back to school, and then this annoying guy on the internet starts challenging me and saying that maybe I didn't need surgery. Who would do something like that?
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I'm not sure I said you didn't need surgery. I said maybe what if you... Yeah, okay, probably. What if it wasn't necessary?
When was this? How many
11.
years ago?
12, 11, 12.
Yeah, 2012. So I've gone back to school. I've started grabbing my prereqs for PTA school because oddly a master's in theology and an undergraduate in education don't like get you the stuff you need to go back to get an associate's. But yeah, so.
And you said, how dare you, Mr. Physio Detective Man? Who the hell do you think you are?
Which is pretty much exactly the stance that I took.
It was like poking a mama bear who had a few hundred cubs behind her.
Yep. I am very protective of those that I feel compassion for, and you look like a threat. So I'm going to puff myself up and I'm going to say, nobody hurts these cubs. We've had enough pain and suffering from your ilk. We're done with you unless you can show that you know pain and understand what it's like. And you kept shoving papers at me that were pissing me off. So,
damn it, breaking biases and beliefs.
Right? So we got on.
This is not how all good friendships start, I have to say.
I mean, coffee probably would have been better, but like that darn ocean in the middle. But I like, as awful as this friendship started, like he engaged my mind and nobody else was really doing that. And he tolerated my belligerent questions and actually seemed to enjoy it because our friend is a little off. So
I love it.
Who would have thunk it? People asking questions makes me excited.
Like, I mean, so really the fact that I was so angry and he's so stubborn was actually like the perfect like mix to start this awesome friendship. Prove it. And he's like, sure. Paper. Read that, Amy. Yep.
Actually, I can imagine you would love that, Antony. Because Amy, you're up in his face going, no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just whip out the evidence and poke holes in all the beliefs. And it was really good. Like,
it was.
I'm assuming this process would have gone over a span
very
of time,
long,
right? Like, yeah. Because
months.
Yeah. And do you think there was anything in particular, Amy, that turned a corner for you, or do you feel like it was a bit of attrition? It was just like over time, like the water hitting the rocks, just gently taking away some of these thought processes?
So part of it is it really was confirmation bias for the devil on my shoulder that was like, this has to be so much more than tissue, right? So the dissenting voice in the back of my head, which, now I go, oh, that's cognitive dissonance. Like there was, I disliked the way that it came at me, but the information itself was actually comforting. Before we started sparring, I had read Explain Pain, which I had literally thrown against the wall 3 times while reading because I was so angry that pain was being described as an experience and not tissue damage. And the idea, because it was so confronting, right? Like I've gone through all of this and all somebody had to tell me was that pain's a little bit more than just tissue. Like I could have identified some stressors back then and been like, oh yeah, my entire being feels like it's under threat. Maybe if I talked about the sexual abuse or confronted the swim coach and said, I just want to get back in the water. Can somebody let me swim? Like if I had thought that those were reasonable things to say, we might not be having a podcast because nothing would have happened and there would have been nothing to write a book about. I mean, like there'd be no story. I would have just been a college athlete that had a blip and then got back in the water. But the turning point was the Tilburg paper. I hate
1998 Tilburg paper.
Hate that paper. Small sample size, long and short of it. They looked at people and providers, and they said, hey, we agree, your SI joint is wonky. We're going to change it. And we're going to look at that internally. Patient and provider both agree, yep, you were wonky. We did the thing. Now you're not wonky. And when we actually look inside, yeah, nothing changed. I still don't have words for like the emotion that creates in me. Like, I felt lied to because I got hurt in 1992. The paper came out in 98. It was now 2012. What the hell? Why didn't everybody know this? Why is this Aussie shoving this paper across me at the internet? Like, why doesn't everybody know this? And then why in 2014 am I still being taught as a PTA that the joint moves and we got to put it back in with the muscle energy techniques? I mean, I literally sat through, I didn't sit quietly, but I mean, the SI joint portion of my education, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, we're going to teach this to a room full of 30 students as though it's God's honest truth. And that's one paper that says that we've got some problems with this narrative. Like, I can bring you like a truck full of them. Why are we still teaching this? So yeah, that paper was my breaking point where I was like, wait a minute. You have destroyed my world and I feel completely lied to and I don't know what to do now. And so then I kind of floated through the abyss of crossing that chasm from my old narrative to a new one. And it feels a little bit like Harry Potter wandering through the forest where you're like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
I feel like that would have been like being thrown in a tumble dryer or something, right, Amy? Like, it's just, holy crap. That is totally turned my world upside down and back to front.
Back to front and upside down.
You just messed with everything that's going on there.
Everything. And so I basically just did a deep dive into reading research and like literally whatever I could find. One of my defining characteristics is if I can't find local resources, I will find them somewhere. And so thank God for Facebook and just starting to fall into different clinician groups and I just found all the right people, right? Like, I found people that talked eloquently about these things and, you know, followed the physio detective around and read and occasionally would put my head out and kind of interact and see what happened, and started listening to podcasts and met Sarah and Sandy from up in Chicago. And like, I was finally with people that were open to me asking questions, as opposed to like the PT in Georgia that was like, no, that's just not the way it works. Right? And they enjoyed my curiosity. And because they enjoyed my curiosity, I felt safe to ask questions. And then as I asked questions, I started taking these pieces like pain is a response to threat, turning around, looking at my own story and going, my body's in threat, my sexuality is in threat, my marriage is in threat, like everything. Like, and I can go back and I can see, oh, when I left Maryland and I left my entire support system and the people that loved me more than anybody else and knew all of my secrets and my demons, and then I had to leave them, that's very threatening because I was going to be all alone with a husband that completely ignored me and like trying to take care of my children on my own. I lost my tribe. Well, and then I also moved a lot of really heavy stuff. I wasn't exercising a ton or lifting stuff at that point. So a little bit of tissue stuff, a lot of chemical soup of loneliness and fear, and boom, we got another match. And there was nothing to ever calm all of that back down. So when I'm back in school and I'm reconnecting in a new way and I've got a new mission and a new passion, like, it's no surprise to me that that's when my pain finally really started resolving. And the information that I'm getting from outside of school that I'm safe to move. Like, this muscle imbalance thing, probably not as big of a deal as it is in my head, and that I can move. And so I've gone back to swimming, and I'm going to do the swimming leg of a triathlon with my best friend, right? Like, and I'm going to travel for that. And well, wouldn't you know it, I came in first in my age group and third overall.
Woohoo! Well
right?
done.
Like, and I hadn't swam in a very long time. So that, and then by this time now I'm really following our dear friend, and I'm seeing how piling up the wins in the little things, like I'm seeing that in my practice as a therapist and in my life. And it was like that last piece that just kind of dropped everything in place. And I was like, you know what? I am going to be okay. I'm going to be better than okay.
When do you think that was in terms of years? Because, I have my perspective on things, of course, being half of the fight.
Right. I would say I really started to believe that in 2014. So before I met you, like before we met in person, and I could see it, but then after 2014, it became about like taking away the specific fears. So like the step ups that we did on the box. And
it was a jump. It wasn't a step. You jumped.
Yeah, well, okay. But it became, well, and then I got hurt again, and that went entirely differently. Like
that wasn't from the jump, by the way.
No. I got injured in school. And so then I got the opportunity to apply all of these things that I knew. And my recovery from that was like night and day different. But, in talking about removing some of those fears, like I know that there's still a couple left in me, like things that I don't do. And I had an opportunity to go ice skating with a new friend recently. And I was very nervous. And so I told my friend, I said, look, I would love to go ice skating with you, but this is something that I am actually, like, ice skating and skiing are two things that like, they make me go, I don't know that I want to do this. And so my friend said, don't worry about it. I got your back. We're going to be fine. And I got out on the ice, and I was kind of tentative at first, but then, we started goofing off, and I skated for a whole 2 hours, and there wasn't even a twinge of pain. And I just kept thinking, I'm with somebody safe that I enjoy, and I'm doing something that's fun. And it changed everything. But it's not positive thinking, right? Like I didn't go in thinking this isn't going to hurt. I went in thinking I just want to have fun. And if things start to hurt, I'm going to tell my friend, like, I need to switch things up because this does not feel good right now. And I'd given myself permission to exit gracefully. And I think that made all the difference in the world. So back in the water, back on skates, maybe I'll go skiing one of these days.
What an amazing journey, Amy. Like, wow. I feel like I knew about 10% of that. And that's just, that's blown my mind.
Even I didn't know all of that for a long, long time.
That is quite the journey. And it sounds like you now, understand your pain a lot better, but you have a lot of strategies in place that you can trust in your body a little bit more, but also know that you're going to have flare-ups. There are going to be times where it's going to be sore, but now it's not diving down into that deep abyss again. It's like, okay, I have some pain.
Well, the crazy thing is I've actually been pain-free for 6 years. Yeah. I don't have daily pain. I don't have daily pain. I don't even have flares anymore. Like, it's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. And I am definitely testing the limits of my tissue and my ability at this point. And nothing has rattled that these days.
6 years pain-free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, some injuries, like, there was that time.
Yeah, like anyone would.
But not the pain like before, right?
Not what I would call my familiar pain.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So like, you know, when I went back to swimming, like I went back to compete.
Yeah.
In the fall, ended up qualifying for Masters Nationals after 5 weeks back in the water, which was outstanding. And like, yeah, I have soreness and like,
I just like to say that I believed in you. You didn't believe in you, but I believed in you. I just want to say that.
I'm just curious, Amy, how was that first tumble turn for you?
It was fine because I'd done a billion of them since surgery.
Oh, you had? Okay, yeah.
But I dove off the block, which I haven't done. Like, I hadn't raced, right? So like the swimmers take your mark and you're pushing off the block and you're really, I mean, I would like to have been going faster.
You use a racing start too, right? Which is a split stance start off a block, whereas...
My right foot is back, so more pressure goes off my right foot, which would have been my involved side. But yes, split stance off the block. And I nailed that turn hard. I mean, that's the only way to get ahead of everybody in a sprint. So...
Are you competitive at all, Amy? No.
No.
Nah.
No.
That's... Nah. Like, I mean, we couldn't be friends if she was competitive like me.
I mean, that would be a terrible thing.
So it's almost like just listening to your story, we were sort of, there's like this list of things that sort of came up early on in the day of all the contributing factors of what was going on in your story. And then towards the end, what I'm hearing from you, Amy, is just all the things that have helped add into your positive column. So you're studying something that you're really interested and engaged in. And you're obviously a highly intelligent woman who needs to use her brain. Like you're a thinker. You need to be learning stuff, right? So going back to college, learning something, getting back in the pool, creating more friendships, talking about things that are outside of your SIJ pain. It's all these things that are just going into your hat, like always into your bucket. Yeah. All these positive things, which are just turning your experience, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And at the time, I would have been like, I'm just living, right? Like I'm just living. And in the book, I talk about it like my world is just slowly starting to expand. And like, there's this one journal entry that I remember. And I said, I feel like my world is expanding from my bedroom into my house, down my street, into my neighborhood. And I feel like my life is getting bigger again. And I feel like now it's the world. I can go wherever I want. I can do whatever I want. And there was a time where the only thing I knew was my bed. And to think that a turnaround like this is possible is really something people need to consider. Because there was a time that I would have preferred to have died than to have woken up one more day in that kind of pain. And to be able to sit here and say, I'm completely pain-free. And in September, I'm going to get to travel to Australia and expand my world even more. Like, there was a time I didn't think that would be possible. And part of it's because somebody annoyed the fart out of me on the internet. That these conversations that we have, they can be so much more important than we think. Whether it's the woman next to us on the plane, or somebody in our mom's group, or the dad at soccer practice, right? Like, or the person on Facebook or Instagram. Like, you never know who you're going to touch. And I know so many clinicians that are looking for the right thing to say at the right time. And there's so many conversations about putting patients in movement prison. And I'm a little afraid we're putting clinicians and other people in word prison. And I know I talked about parts of my story where, I laugh about the unstable pelvis comment now, because I can now. But the best way to treat a person in pain is to treat them like a person. And to see it like a relationship. And we make mistakes in communication all the time in relationships. And so as a clinician, you're going to make mistakes. But the biggest mistake that you can make is not trying. So saying something is better than saying nothing. You can go back and fix it and amend it, because that's what relationships are. Like, I needed people like Tim and John and Anne to believe in me. I needed them to believe my story. I needed them to listen to me. And then I needed them to help me live. I didn't need an exercise prescription. I needed a life prescription. I needed permission to live. And it wasn't until I gave myself that things really started to turn around.
With those interactions, with with the pokey that I did, the way that I remember it is that I never wrote you off. I never called you names. I was stubborn, like you said. Like, I just held my ground. How important do you think challenging beliefs are? Can you tell us instances, once you've had this knowledge, of where, maybe even people doubled down on their beliefs instead of considering something new?
That's a great question. I'm not entirely certain that challenging beliefs really is as important as we think it is. I think often when we have any kind of new experience that's successful, we can often become zealous about that. And in our zealousness, we want everyone else to understand. And I was like that after surgery, because I was thinking so positively that I was going to get better, and I wanted everyone to be better. And then when I was really better, I really wanted everybody to know that, hey, wait, but your thoughts and your emotions and all the other stuff going on in your life, and the way that you think about your pain and the way that you behave, and right? Literally high-speed hummingbird amount of things to say. As I started to, because I was I'm in the clinic now as a PTA, right? And I remember being so excited that I was just going to correct this woman that oh, I know you had those scans, but it's really like wrinkles on the inside. And so don't worry about it. We just need to get you moving. And the woman was like, I don't think I want to see you again. I want the other PTA. And I was like, oh, what? No, but I'm going
to save you. I'm going to rescue you.
I'm going to save you. I'm going to fix you. And I'm like, oh, now I'm doing it. Right?
And hey, we've all done that. Oh my gosh, I've done that big time. I had a client look at me and go, what?
Too much. I've done it too much.
You're telling me it's all in my head? I'm like, no.
I'm not saying it's in your head. I mean, your brain's located in your head, but it's not. But right? So, and I will never forget this woman's face. She just looked at me and I'm done with you. And the relationship was broken. I couldn't fix that because I hadn't focused on her needs. I'd focused on mine. I focused on my need to be right, my need to fix, my need to save, and not what she actually needed to hear. So do we need to correct everybody's wrong beliefs about their spines and their pelvises and their ribs and fascia? No. I think we need to help them feel safe. And sometimes that includes information.
I feel like that was probably perfect for you, Amy, as such a cerebral person,
Yes.
because you are someone who likes to read research. And Antony probably sussed that out really quickly. You're like, this is a woman who she wants to know facts and figures and she wants to read research, and I got research for you.
For days.
But he wouldn't, and I imagine, Antony, for many people, you would never do that because they don't want to read research and you're not just going to throw a whole bunch of facts at them. But you sussed her out pretty quickly.
I was happy. I probably was not as sophisticated. Amy has, and I quote, an intimidatingly high EQ, and this is true. And I have learnt a lot about communication from just talking to Amy on Facebook, not even in person, but in person and on, Skype and things like that. Just learning more and more about, well, maybe, and sometimes it's not even overt where she's correcting me. It's just like, I noticed that she's doing that. Maybe I should do this. I noticed that she's saying it this way. Maybe I should try that. So, and to be honest, the women's health physios who saw me on the forums, have probably seen me change a little bit in the way that I ask questions as well. And it's necessary. I don't pretend that I know the right way or the perfect way or have all the answers. I honestly do just love asking questions. But yeah, Amy was good that way. And Christy, our common friend, who also had surgery, I interact with her a different way. She's a very different type of person. And I interact with her in a very different way during that time. And, Lauren and quite a few of the others from the group who are actually genuinely interested.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can hear their stories on Amy's podcast too, Restoring You, which is, lots of good stories. If you want more stories about pain, that's definitely where to go and get some more. Super important. Sorry.
No, it's been fun. It's been fun chatting with a lot of those women that I went through that time with. And, almost all of us are pain-free at this point that we're in my little cohort. And the stories, if you really listen, are so very similar, but the journeys that we took to get there are so very different. But at the end of the day, it is about calming things down and confronting fears and building things back up. And, Antony has been an encouragement in my professional life as well to step out and, do that in a telehealth kind of way. And it's been so much fun being able to work with clients internationally and just have a conversation like this over Zoom and be like, all right, what do you want to do? And how are we going to get there? Let's come up with a plan together.
That sounds like a really nice segue, Amy, into talking about the pain coaching that you offer. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I offer consults if you've got like one burning question you just cannot come to terms with, especially if you've got questions about SI joint anatomy. We can answer that really quickly. Don't ask me about answers.
Tell me about that little tiny ligament that can rupture easily.
Just that one, and then we'll pull up a Google image together and discuss that there's more than one. No, but so I do consults, and you pick the amount of time that you need, and we discuss your question, and then you toddle off back into your world, and I toddle off back into mine. And then I also offer a coaching program for people that are trying to really figure out how to get back to the things that they love. And I want autonomy for you as the patient. And so I have a couple different packages that you can pick from. And then you've got time to use these sessions with me. So we meet, I listen to your story. We discuss what that thing is that you want to do. I've had people that simply want to sit for 15 minutes so they can have coffee with a friend. I've had other people that want to get back to kickboxing. Had to do a little research on kickboxing, but that's all right. So, I mean, it can be as simple as I want to sit with my friends for 15 minutes and I can't sit for more than a minute right now, to like, I want to run a marathon and I don't know how to do that. Like, And we set up the coaching package and we spend time talking, and then you've got more access to me via, Facebook Messenger is usually how we've been doing it. But, you're having a panic in between week 1 and week 3, and you just need me to tell you life's going to be okay. Like, I'm deliriously happy to be the cheerleader that says it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to get there. And I've got one woman that's doing a lot of emotional work right now. I wrote a 28-day journal to kind of help you think through some of the different emotional aspects to the journey and places we might get stuck. And she's working through that right now. So she PMs occasionally and is like, okay, that was really upsetting and I don't know what to do with that. Right. And then we chat for a little bit and, collect more information on the next visit and keep moving forward, because sometimes it's so overwhelming to try to keep moving forward. And
these sessions are not like your typical turn up to a physio and then get your story done in 5-10 minutes, and then I'm going to assess this, and then we're going to, just so that people understand what they're coming to get, because it is different and it's so necessary, right?
Yes, and it's literally different with every person. So I have one where we share, I show her exercises and stretches. I have another one where we do a little bit of that, but we do a lot of talking and exploring. So one of the things I love about being in this space is I can literally give you the thing that you need. I don't have to give you the thing the insurance company wants me to give you. I can give you what you actually need. And the funny thing is, they always know. I have yet to work with somebody that didn't know what they actually needed. Might have had to pull it from them a little bit, but they know. And I think being able to be in a position where I can do that really makes me kind of deliriously happy.
Tell us about the book, Amy. You mentioned the book. What is the book? Tell us about it.
The book is called Restoring Venus, a journey from chronic pain to possibilities. And it comes out March 14th on Amazon. It has been the last year of my life digging through the rubble of my story, and lots of tears and clarifications and phone calls, and probably should have had a counselor through that, but I didn't. But just such a cathartic experience to be able to turn back around and go through the journal that I kept post-op and layer in the reflections of Amy now to Amy that was going through surgery and recovery. And I really wanted this to be a work that a patient or a clinician could read and almost hear the inside thoughts in my head. Because I think it's one thing to read research. It's one thing to hear somebody else say that life is hard, but to actually be inside of my head and my emotions as I was going through it was really the gift that I wanted to be able to give somebody. And
I know just because I was there a lot for you. It was a struggle to get, people who were helping you just to understand what you're going through and how to even articulate. And, we did a lot of talking about what went on, and it's exciting. It's exciting. I haven't read the final bit of the book yet, the final few chapters, but I will get there.
The part where you actually show up?
Yeah, I haven't read that part. No, I'm in the book.
He's too scared to know how he's going to be coming across.
Oh.
Like we talked about in the interview today. But no, it was, by the time I was done, I was completely exhausted. I'm not going to lie, I was completely exhausted. But I was at San Diego Pain Summit this weekend. And first of all, you guys need to get there next year. Everybody needs to be there. It was such an amazing experience. And I gave the attendees the book like just because they're learning. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I really like people that are willing to learn. And several of the folks there like had kind of read it in a pre-release way for me. And the things that people have said, I'm going to start to cry again, just because it's been really eye-opening for people that I already felt like their eyes were open on what it's like to actually live in that kind of desperation and despair of pain. And, if you think this interview is raw, you should read the book.
I think, no, I'm so grateful that you've come and spoken to us, Amy, because, like you were saying earlier in the piece, you were really good at hiding it from your physios, right? Like you would put on your brave face, have your shower, put your and so patients probably do that a lot for us as well, hide their truth. So maybe we don't ever get to feel the full impact of what our clients are going through. So I'm so grateful that you've shared this. And I think for anyone in pain to actually hear your journey, but also hear what has helped you. And, like we were saying before the podcast, there's no, we wish that there was like a really simple cure for pain, and that if we gave everyone a blueprint, follow this and do these things, it's going to work. And that doesn't work for everyone, but I think it's just so helpful to hear of somebody who has been through, let's face it, hell. Like it's been a rough ride for you. But through this journey, you have learned so much about yourself. You've obviously made a lot of friends,
yes.
Certainly within the physio world, as well as, other aspects of your life, but got back into your swimming competitively. It's just, it's so beautiful to hear. So I'm really grateful that you opened up to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I look forward to reading your book as well. I have a box of tissues.
It has been really fun to be here with you guys tonight. So, well, it's my night. It's your Friday already.
Yeah. Look, thank you very much, Amy. Really appreciate it. So where can people find you? What's the easiest way to get in contact with you? How can people find you for appointments? I know that you take referrals from providers as well as directly from the public and from around the world. So how can people find you?
My website is www.restoringvenus.com. And if you click Work With Me, you can pull down the little menu there and pick the thing that suits you best. If you would like to interact with me on social media, I am on Facebook at Restoring Venus. Facebook messages, I remember they're there. Instagram messages, I don't. So if you actually want me to pay attention to you, you should probably go through my website or Facebook. And I will mention the podcast again, just because if you enjoyed hearing my story, there are 14 other stories and more coming on the way of men and women that have just done miraculous things. And this season, I'm going to have some folks that have had like pelvic pain, urinary incontinence, diastasis, things like that. So there will also be some women's health issues that are shared. And I am just so proud to be in the company of those men and women. So Restoring You on iTunes and available on my blog.
Awesome. Well, I think we will we'll wrap it up today, because I think we've almost got to 2 hours for our 1 hour podcast, because quite frankly, it was just awesome, and we would never want to stop you from telling your story. So thank you so much, Amy. We really appreciate it. And yeah, everyone jump on board. Follow Amy's Facebook and get her book when the final version is released on March the what? 3rd?
14th.
14th. Not even close. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much, Amy. Really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure that you press like and subscribe, leave us a review, tell us what you thought, and you can ask any questions for Amy and she'll get those and be able to answer you back and go from there. Thanks very much. Hey everybody, thank you for listening to the podcast. I just want to have a quick word about our sponsor, the Myotherapy Reading Room. The Myotherapy Reading Room does provide a curated, keyword indexed feed of topical peer review papers, podcasts, clinical practice guidelines, and systematic reviews, together with all the links for the relevant papers, the resources that come with it, and all the specially selected things to help support the clinicians who subscribe to this service in the application of evidence-based practice, in particular for musculoskeletal pain and injury presentations, including chronic pain. Its rapidly growing subscriber base includes physiotherapists, osteopaths, chiropractors, exercise physiologists, myotherapists, strength and conditioning coaches, fitness professionals, massage therapists, and others from Australia, Canada, United States, the United Kingdom, and various places around the world. I know Elaine, who helps run this Myotherapy Reading Room, and she's an epidemiologist. She goes through the papers. She's the one who's providing the episode notes for you on these podcasts, and she's fantastic with making sure that any papers that come up that are relevant, she helps to make sure that she brings it to your attention. So support the Myotherapy Reading Room. It's $3 a month or $6 a month. Seriously, that is under $100 a year, and that's Australian dollars, I suspect. It's very, very cheap to get somebody pointing to, at all the good resources that are coming out so that you can stay on top of your game, so that you can start seeing the things that are relevant for your clinical practice. So go have a look. Thank you very much. Well, that's it for this episode. Please be sure to hit like if you enjoyed this episode and leave any comments or questions below, because we'd really love to hear from you.
If you haven't already hit subscribe, please do so now so that you can be kept notified of when we release a new episode.
Otherwise, thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you back with us for another episode of the Women's Health Podcast.